Hi, I'm Jay, and today I'm at the bench tying with a new thread. At least it's new to me. Stay tuned. And we're back. So, good morning. At the bench today, turn the cameras on to show it's a new thread, or at least new to me, from a company that's been around, I don't know, around 2005, I think is when they started. A company from Italy called Textreme. And I have a bunch of different threads, though I had purchased mainly looking for a thread that would replace the Danville 2-aught round nylon unwaxed thread that I really enjoy using. Looking through their products, they have a size A thread that is fantastic. Perfect substitute if you want to, you can't find the good rod or other rod wrapping threads, or you don't like using those large 950-yard spools that I use when tying with the size A thread. Their size A threads are in the same standard size spool that you would find the other types of threads. So a 100-yard spool, a smaller spool. And I have two today that I've been playing with off and on. I have the standard. Goodness, I need my glasses on. So this is a 3-aught standard. This is a red 3-aught. And it's a nice thread. If it was a 2-aught diameter, it would, I would just love this without question. But it's a really good alternative to replace the Danville 2-aught round nylon thread that I enjoy. And then in my order, I actually noticed on their website and wanted to try out their twisted thread. Now, they don't have a 3-aught in the twisted. I think if they did, the twisted might be almost identical to the Danville, to be honest. But the twisted thread also, a nice round type thread, and isn't a terrible alternative for a 2-aught thread. So often in my videos, you'll hear me describe tying jigs that are a quarter in size or smaller, going all the way down to, the 190s, right? Real tiny jigs. And I use a Danville 2-aught round nylon thread in my inventory. You've probably also seen me use a Herder's 2-aught thread, a Lily, which is an old thread company specifically for sewing, but it just happened to be a really nice nylon thread, also in 2-aught. What else do I use? Good rod. Occasionally I have a good rod 2-aught rod wrapping thread, which has become kind of difficult to find now too. So trying to find alternatives for that round nylon unwaxed thread. So let's switch over and we'll just do a little bit of tying. First, I'm going to use the standard, Textreme standard 3-aught nylon thread. We'll just go ahead right here. So the jig I'm using is just a 1/8 ball head. I I just happen to have these on my table. And it locks on nicely. Let's see, we'll get a color that we can see well. So I'm just tying on a bucktail. These 1/8 heads, of course. We do a lot of marabou, we do hackle. You can use all sorts of materials for small jigs this size. So we get our pinch ready, our tail. And we will measure. The tail will be the length of the body past the bend of the hook. We'll adjust the camera just slightly. I've had things moved around on my table recently, and we'll raise the camera just a little bit. So I'm testing this with bucktail because with all the materials that I mentioned, see that a little bit better. With all the materials that I mentioned, the bucktail is what we're using the most force with. Marabou, of course, compresses because it's so soft. The hackle feathers might have been another good thing to use as an example because of the shaft of the feather being hard. We do use some pressure to make sure that we've locked it on well. But bucktail's a good thing to use to test this. This tail, I would probably call it a medium coarseness in terms of the hair. Some, just like people, some deer tails are soft and very fine hair. Some tails are thick and much more coarse. But this is a average tail. Nothing special about it one way or the other. So a few wraps towards the bend of the hook, a few wraps back up towards the head, back towards the middle, back towards the head. You can take a quick look. Looks like I have an orange piece of hair in there. That's alright. This is just test. And I do have some hair sticking out the bottom here. What this is these heads, I don't know who makes them. I think they're a bulk purchase from Barlow's. But the ball is offset at the bend of the hook. So, I could continue wrapping that and cover this, though now I'm wrapping at an angle. And for this purpose, we're just testing out this thread. So let's finish this off like normal. So one of the main reasons on these smaller head jigs that I use that 2/0 thread is the diameter of the thread helps keep that collar compact, a nice proportional size to the rest of the jig. Cost factors into that, of course. We don't want to use more expensive thread for such a tiny jig. Size A thread would be much too big, right? It would look like we're lashing it with rope. So here's our first example. This is the standard 3/0 nylon thread. And that's a decent, there we go. That's a decent collar. Not terrible. And like I said, there's that orange hair that's in there. That's totally fine. It takes the lacquer-based head cement just fine. So let's switch our bobbins here. And we'll use the same head. We'll get a different color tail, I think, for this one. So again, we're tying on a 1/8 ball. And we lock on. This is the twisted 6/0. And I like this. I like the feel of this twisted thread. It has that texture, of course, because it's a twisted, you know, 2 pieces of string twisted together. We'll just go with gray. I'm going to use the back side of this gray tail. That might be even easier to see on the camera. So I've been tying with this thread for about a week now. I bought enough spools of the standard 3/0 to get me through a few weeks worth of tying. Right now I'm tying a lot of 1/4 and 1/8. I have a couple new stores this summer that are along a river that is actually fairly shallow. So 1/8 and 1/4 is what they're fishing with almost exclusively. And of course the flatheads I have in the 1/4 and have sold a fair amount of those, but they are actually requesting the ball heads, which is fine. I'm happy to tie and sell whatever, you know, whatever is dictated by the lake or the river. So I do have a lot of tying coming up where I will use this. I bought I think it was 2 dozen. 3, 6, 9, yeah, 2 dozen of the 3/0 standard. I'll probably go through both of those boxes there. Color wise, this thread comes in any color. I should have actually looked at the list so I could tell you accurately how many colors, but all standard colors. Nylon thread, of course, takes dye really well, and they have some really nice fluorescent colors. Let me see if I can get my box. Let's see. This is a quick peek. Here's a fluorescent fluorescent yellow and a chartreuse in this box. Turn off my face again, even though I just turned it back on. Fluorescent yellow and chartreuse. Here's a fluorescent pink. It's a great color. And the other 2 colors in here, one's a light olive, one's a regular olive. So those are the standard 3/0 spools. I like this twisted. I do like this twisted thread. They both are great. I think I'm pleased with either of them as an alternative for the Danville 2/0 thread. We'll probably ask them if they're able to make this twisted thread in the 2/0 size, but we'll see. I do like that. That is a nice, that felt nice. I was able to provide enough pressure in tying my wraps. It just felt good. I guess in terms of a review, this isn't a very technical review. I'm going mostly on feeling, right? Because in some regards, hold on, let's see. Let's switch this over. In some regards, the amount of tying that I do, right? A lot of it truly is feeling. All right, I'm trying to replace material that I've used for over 20 years. And I wanna replicate that as I'm tying, right? Because that's what I'm comfortable with. That's what I'm interested in. So really nice thread. So the Textreme 3/0 standard or the twisted 6/0, both really nice threads that will replicate that Danville 2/0 or Herder's 2/0, Gudrod 2/0, that more tradition. I call it traditional. It's traditional to me because that's how I learned 40 years ago, right? But it's that kind of old-timey. Back in the 70s, you didn't have a whole lot of different threads to choose from. If you go back even a little bit farther, 50s, 60s, what were guys getting for thread? Your doctors and lawyers that were having your Catskill tires tie them flies, right? Custom flies, could afford, silk from Japan, right? But what could the average farmer tie afford, right? Or the average guy, back from Korea, starting a family, right? What could they afford? So oftentimes tires, and some of us still do this, raid the sewing kit, from their mother, from their wife, right? And that's where we get our materials. The Lily thread that I do have some in my inventory, I really like. It's a nice thread. The Lily thread is most certainly just for sewing. But in the 70s, it was a nice round nylon thread, unwaxed. So really happy with that thread. I do have some samples here that they sent me, and I don't think I'm going to try these on jigs, but I might switch the vise over and maybe tie a fly or two. They sent along some power thread. They have some small, medium, large, micro power thread. This reminds me of a similar to the Danville, the flat wax nylon. The same with their, well, they call it flat wax nylon. A really nice thread. What else we got here? Tie Master Plus. So I'm assuming that's probably going to be very similar to the Flymaster type threads. We have some glitter thread here. Really interested in using this. Let's switch over one more time. And I don't have this in a bobbin, but the glitter thread, I really like the way that looks. That will really, I I would use this for smaller jigs, fishing for crappie, bluegill, panfish, regular panfish type jigs. That would be an awesome collar to just add more flash. Another thing, and I failed to mention this, on these spools. You can see here that it's got a thread keeper, you know, as part of the spool. And in just, did I do it? I did it on my size A. I actually removed that. And that's something I do with my Good Rod 950 yard spools, just so they ride in the bobbin a little bit nicer. But honestly, I didn't really have to cut this off because, as you can see, there's plenty of space here on the bobbin. But I've been trying these in different types of bobbins. This is a umpwa, right? Is that how you say it? Bobbin. You know, cheaper bobbins that you normally would, you know, are your cheap $7 bobbins. But trying them in a bunch of different tools just to see how they work, if there's any difference. What else do we have here? We have the standard in a 6/0. Nice fine thread. And the standard, I think, would also be nice to use for smaller dry flies. I like using a thread that's not flat when I tie. And we also have a standard 8/0. So here's the company, Textreme. Check them out online. I'll put a link in the description below for their website. Everything is being shipped over from Italy. It's an Italian company, but to be honest, all my orders have been fairly quick, less than a week, or within a week, right? Which isn't too bad, right? But I think that's going to do it for us today. I'm going to keep tying with this thread, like I said. In upcoming videos, I'm going to be using it, and you know, as I learn more about the qualities of this thread, not the technical stuff, when I learn personally as a tyer, and my opinions are formed and grow, I most certainly will be commenting as I'm tying. Full disclosure, and being quite honest, when I first sat down and started tying, I was snapping thread a lot. And I don't know if that was, I think I was overdoing it just a little bit on purpose, and trying to learn the limits of the thread, and then still discovering that as an alternative for the 2/0, it still was a good alternative. So that's that. You know, those are some of the thoughts that are going through my head as I'm using the thread and learning about it. After today, I most certainly will purchase a few more spools of the 6/0 twisted, because this is, I really like it. It's slightly thinner diameter, you know, of course, because it's 6/0, but the texture, I think, is what's catching my attention. So that's interesting. Now, upcoming videos, and I'm working on something. It might be quite some time before it's completed, but I do plan on going into greater detail on why I choose thread for specific reasons, why I prefer unwaxed versus waxed thread. So, you know, and I'm going to be getting into a little bit of history, some of my own personal history in terms of how I learned in the 70s, and then as I learned things, tying not only jigs but also dry flies, and the different types of tying that I did throughout the years, and how those opinions grew and were formed, etc. So, but I think that's going to do it for us today. As always, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. Feel free to share any of our videos, as it does help increase awareness for the channel. Check out the website, jworthhandtied.com. I actually just recently put a refurbished vise on there for sale, the Universal 2 that I like to use. I actually have another one that, if this one goes quickly, we're going to be able to list as well. What else do we got? I'm going to start adding a little bit of thread. I actually got a nice order of Danville 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, 5/0, and 6/0 recently, that I'll put some of those on the website as well. And you know, once I decide for sure on this Textreme thread, I'm planning on being able to offer that as well. But we'll see. That'll be in the future. So until next time, guys, keep tying in tight lines.